So, hi everybody. So I'm Raa'nan. This is me 3 days ago crossing the finish line of Tel Aviv Marathon. As you notice, I'm still pumped with adrenaline and a little sore. And you know, marathons, it's not just about running. It's actually not about running at all. Marathons is about resilience, endurance, and taking it just a little bit more. And by the way, I wasn't like that all the years. I didn't do this shit. My first marathon was at 38. Until then, my longest run was 3K, and I used to smoke a pack a day. So it could happen to you. I've been doing startups in the last 20 years. But before that, I'm a husband to Ravit and the father to Daniel, Romy, Eli, and Oz. Thank you. This is us in Bali. If you would have told me 20 years ago that I would be here on stage after building 2 companies, one taking it public, Mobile Max, the other bringing it to a unicorn status, I would have laughed. I mean, I totally didn't have it in my cards. I landed my first job in tech when I was 30 by chance. And this was totally not something planned for me. And recently, I got a new title, author. I still can't believe it, right? 6 months ago, my book, Just a Little Bit More, a novel talking about the dark sides of the tech and startup world, was released. From its second week, it's in the top of the national bestsellers list, and it's still there since, and I've been living in a dream. And today, I want to share with you my startup journey. But none of these, not marathons, not startups, not a book, none of these were in my plan. I wasn't in Unit 8200 or in Mamram or Talpiot. I actually didn't even know these units exist. I spent my army service between Lebanon and Intifada. And following 4 years of service, I was accepted to the Prime Minister office, did like an intense combat training, JR course, and sent abroad. Lived for periods in cities like Cairo, Rome, Zurich, New York City, and others. And 3 years later, coming back to Israel, I moved into the Air Marshals unit. So I ranked miles in El Al. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I found myself studying accounting. Accounting, I don't know if there's any CPAs here? None. Accounting, 4 years of soul-crushing depression. I hated it, and following that, although I hated it, I landed a nice internship in KPMG, one of the prestigious accounting firms, and I hated my destiny. One day, before I was supposed to start my internship, I got a call that changed everything. A basketball buddy of mine called me saying, hey, you want to join a startup? We need someone to connect our local engineers with the clients abroad, someone who's seen the world, who can hustle, someone just like you. It's called project manager. You get a meal card and a gym membership. Now, I didn't know anything about startups. I barely knew what a startup is, but I did know I hate accounting. So I'm in. So my parents flipped. They begged me to complete my internship, get my CPA license. I mean, my mother still thinks until today it was a huge mistake. But I found myself in a startup. And I'm a project manager, going on planes, meeting customers. I found myself in meetings, nodding, trying to learn on the job, pretending as if I know something. I was very, very fortunate that the startup I landed in, Cashew Technologies, had amazing people, amazing founders. They taught me everything I knew, and they were also very kind. They were very kind to the outsider. And all that didn't help me feel that it's just a matter of time until I got my tap on the shoulder with a, hey guy, we know you're not You don't know what you're doing, right? You need to get out of here. So imposter syndrome from day one. I felt like a total fraud, felt like everyone is a tech genius, and I'm just trying to hang on. And this held me for like 3 years, but eventually I said, okay, I know where this is going, and I quit. I decided to quit. I went to the CEO's office. I said, listen, I'm leaving. I'm opening my own startup. Now, back then, I had this vague idea about developing a solution that will help mobile calls while roaming. Back in the day, these calls were very expensive. If any of you remember, we used to use calling cards. You used to punch in a lot of numbers. It was a nightmare, and smartphones started coming out. I had this vague idea, and like many ideas, we all have ideas. I have today dozens of ideas. We don't act on them, but this time, I felt I had nothing to lose, right? I'm going to be fired anyway at a certain point of time. I decided to leave, and I remember I used to watch my CEO and our founders speaking in happy hours and coming back from conferences. I used to fantasize that one day I could be a CEO, I could be a founder, but it was only in my dreams, but now I'm living, right? So I found myself a CEO. How hard can it be, CEO? So I did what the CEOs and founders do, right? I walked around telling everyone we're about to change the world. We're building the next unicorn. And of course, go raise money. Now, raising money turned out to be like an entire shit show. Any VCs, investors here? I believe there are many, right? Investors, VCs, yeah? They can tell you. Think about it. I had no tech military unit, no tech education, no real entrepreneurship background, and only in retrospect I understood I was super lucky that I didn't understand that I have zero chance for raising money. Zero. Okay? VCs want one of the three. A repeating founder, right? The cool guy who did IPO or sold the company, or a 8200 superstar, or at least someone that other investors are chasing after. I had none of the three. And the months passed, and I had zero progress with my funding, not a funding light on the end of the tunnel, and I smelled the startup graveyard even just before I started. But then, I got my lucky break. 2 VPs from the startup I worked in, the CFO and the CMO, Israel and David, which I didn't really work with them on day to day, they knew me. They took me aside and said, hey, we heard you're starting something of your own, and we like you. You work hard, you hustle, you have grit. We want to be your first investors. And at that time, I didn't grasp the strength of this game-changing fortune that fell on me, because these guys, they weren't just any investors. They had NASDAQ IPO on their belt. They IPO'd Magic Software, and suddenly, I was meeting other investors. They said, okay, if these guys are in, this might be interesting. And I hustled through more angels and managed to get my first $1 million. And now, it's not just a dream. I have a company, I have a startup. It was getting real. Now, remember the phone chaos and jungles back then with Nokia and Symbian, BlackBerry, LG, Samsung? A nightmare for the telecom carriers and a nightmare for the developers, right? Hundreds of phones, non-compatible between each other. So this was what MobileMax was born to fix. We developed a platform for telecom carriers that enabled to develop once and have it worked on the variety of the phone models. And we're talking about like mid-2000, all the stars aligned, the telecom mobile was bursting, and we started skyrocketing. Customers all around the world, from T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, Synctel, more and more customers coming in. And suddenly, the tiny little startup is working with the giants of the telecom world. We expanded, we opened the US office. Of course, in Miami, 100 Biscayne, just across the Miami Heat Arena. And we felt like rock stars. So now, it's not just about growing, it's exploding. Next, underwriters came over, and we took the company public. We did an IPO. Suddenly, we have analysts following us, newspapers, headlines. And back then in my 30s, I may have become a little cocky, right? I felt like I owned the world. I mean, think about it. Just a second ago, I was a wannabe project manager. Suddenly, I'm the CEO of a skyrocketing startup. And I was in the front pages of the press, on stages, all over the place. I felt, okay, like I'm a huge success story, like crazy. And at least that's what I thought. And one day, I received the dream phone call. One of the institutional investors called us and said, hey, Raa'nan, we want to buy from you shares in the amount of $10 million. It's only a part of your holdings. And they explained that's the beauty of a public company. There's no presentations. There's no negotiations. You just say, I do, and the money is in your bank. And what was my reply? I said, hey, guys, the company is just 100 million. We're still growing. I'm not going to sell now. And they tried to insist. They told me, listen, we remember you from the IPO. You're a good guy. You have 4 kids. You have family. You have a mortgage. Take the money. You still have enough upside. But I kicked them away. Just a little bit more. I'll sell to you, but just a little bit more. The company continued to grow. Everything seemed great. Every month, new devices, new phones came in. The chaos grew. The demand for the Mobile Max technology grew, and there was no hurdle in sight. We seemed unstoppable until one day in 2007, the entire telecom industry was disrupted. First came the iPhone, and just a few months later came the Android, and the entire industry, from being an entire chaos, turned into, it took 3 to 4 years, but the entire industry turned into a 2-player game, iPhone and Android. So what the essence of our technology, bridging between the multiple devices, started to disappear. I mean, it took 3 or 4 years, but it was pretty clear to me where this is going. We are going to hit the iceberg. There's no doubt about it. This is where the world is going. It's going face down. And I knew it. And I could have walked away, but I don't walk away in the middle of a marathon, right? So I stayed, and we continued, and we tried, and we said, okay, just a little bit more, and we'll figure it out. And I'm not leaving. We'll figure it out. Until one day, the board had enough. They pulled the plug, and Mobile Max was dead. And it's very hard to describe the feeling of someone who was I was on the top of the world. On stages, I was making things happen, and suddenly collapsing face down to zero. This is super, super, super tough. You can imagine the implications on the family, on the partner, but there's another level to this shit, where I realized that it's not only that my company collapsed, I was the one, because of my recklessness and because I was so cocky, I pushed away financial freedom for our family for life. And this was something that months of sleepless nights and trying to invent myself, but this was on another level. I was struggling to stay on trail, continue You know, in the ultra running world, there is a mantra: you never make race decisions on an uphill. And I was on a steep uphill. This is, by the way, a picture from a Sovev Emek 100-mile race, mile 70. I'm trying to get my blistered fixed. And so I was struggling to stay and find a new thing. I tried everything. I tried to come up with new ideas. Dating apps for 70-year-olds, coupons, diets, and I kept trying for months. It was 6 or 8 months that I was trying nothing. In parallel to that, trying to hide my misery and sleepless nights from Ravit, my wife, from the kids, from the world. I used to go to conferences like this. I remember, literally remember, I would meditate before, come in, say, wear your smile. I was walking around, and you know how it goes in these conferences, right? If you ask someone, how is it going? Oh, it's going fabulous, going great, we're killing it. And I played the game. And I remember, it felt like everyone is killing it, and I'm the only one, the loser, who's not getting any sleep. So months of despair, trying new stuff, until 6 months later, one night, it hit me. This guy is me on pizza night, right? Maybe it's you too on similar occasions. So every Thursday night, we have a pizza night in our family. Every second week, the pizza is late. Now, if you have a wife and 4 kids, a pizza delay is not just a delay, it's a crisis. It's a crisis that can develop into a nightmare. And one night, I decided to dig into it and explore. Why can't we have the experience I get on Amazon or on Uber when I order pizza? Why can't I see the driver? Why can't I provide him instructions how to enter? Why can't I rate the experience? Why doesn't it work like that? And pretty fast, the answer was clear. It's all about technology, right? Amazon, Uber, Walt, the new guys, they are tech companies. They developed very powerful software engines that enabled them these superpower logistics and delivery capabilities. So, but what about the rest of the world? The Fortune 5,000, all the big names, the big brands. They need to level up. So suddenly, if Amazon can deliver this remote to me on a same-day delivery, and Walmart, it will take them 48 hours, Walmart loses the business. So, and I'm talking 10 years back, it was like 2014 when we founded Bring. The retail was just under, the e-commerce was under 5% of retail, but growing fast. And e-commerce, you know, it's a nice word for logistics. And the vision behind Bring was that any brand that delivers something to someone will need to have similar capabilities, or they will lose their business. By the way, all these brands are Bring customers. So that's the vision behind Bring. Every company that does e-commerce will need advanced logistics capabilities, just like Amazon, Uber, and the other guys, and that's what I wanted to build, a SaaS platform that will enable this. There's only one problem. Remember, I don't know anything in tech. I'm not a tech guy. How do I build something like this? Right, so I'm not a tech guy, but I love running. And in one of the marathons, I met this guy, this handsome guy, Lior Sion. We met in one of the marathons, we stayed in touch on Facebook, and now I recalled that he is the CTO of Get Taxi. Probably the #1 candidate in the world to lead a development of such a platform. So I gave him a call, we got together for coffee, and we hooked up together to build Bring. Bring, from day one, was a huge success. I mean, we landed customers like Coca-Cola, FedEx, McDonald's, etc. Annual revenues of millions of dollars. We were killing it. Investors were not only interested, they were chasing us. They were shoving money down our throats. Like VCs were all over us. It was crazy. And you know, we were doubling our valuation every few months. And this time, I learned. I mean, I don't always learn from my mistakes, but this time I learned. Every time we had an up round, we got more money, Lior and myself, we sold some shares. We also encouraged the employees to sell options. The sting of the scars from the Mobile Max days, where I didn't sell shares, were still burning my back, and every round we sold some shares. Now, the VCs, they didn't like it. And we sold some more, and they didn't like it a lot. And we sold some more, and eventually, in June 2001, Bring hit the unicorn valuation, the billion-dollar valuation, and that's where I said, okay, no more, just a little bit more for me. I sold my shares and headed to the beach. So, thank you for listening. If you want to chat about marathons, startups, or books, drop me a note. Stay in touch.